Welcome to day 7. We're so close. We only have one more practice after today. I hope that this has been a positive experience for you so far, that it's been feeling good and you've been learning a lot. And I hope that you've been enjoying establishing a yoga practice in your life. Something I really love about yoga is it really helps bring a sense of balance into my life. It helps me realize what I can do to be more balanced, both in the purely physical sense of the word, like being able to stand on one leg, and also other senses of the word, like emotional balance, work-life balance, balance in my relationships. So today's theme is all about balance. We're going to go ahead and lay down on our backs. So make sure you have your props nearby if you're using them. Blocks, at least one block, will be very helpful. I also highly recommend a thick folded up blanket. So go ahead and lay down with bent knees. Start to connect with your Ujjayi breath. And for today's intention, I challenge you to think about your sense of balance in your life and what you might be able to bring into your life to feel more balanced. Is there anything going on, whether it's in something you've been doing or in a thought process you've been having or in a relationship, that makes something feel off balance? And what can you do to bring a state of harmony and balance into your life a little bit more? Making sure your feet are pretty close in towards your butt. We are going to explore the theme of rooting to rise. So one very crucial aspect of balance in yoga poses is your connection with the ground. So the only reason we're not falling through space right now is because we have this connection with the ground. We're pushing down into the ground and the ground pushes back up into us. And of course, we have a lot more of us on the ground right now, our entire backs, our heads. But when we're standing, it's usually just our feet. So go ahead and start to think about the bottoms of your feet and start to feel the connection of your feet against the earth. Try to lift up just your toes and spread your toes nice and wide, and then placing them back down. Doing that a few more times, spreading your toes wide, waking up those foot muscles, and then placing them back down. And then starting to root to rise, we're going to put a little more pressure through our feet, feeling how that starts to rock the pelvis. And one vertebrae at a time, trying to really grade this effort here, pushing a little harder and a little harder to start to lift the hips towards our bridge pose. Doing your best to keep your gaze up at the ceiling right now, not trying to turn and twist to look at the screen. And we're approaching our bridge pose. So holding the hips up, not too high, not too low. Maybe gently pressing the arms down against the ground. Inhale. And exhale, slowly lower down, releasing that force back into the earth, dropping down one vertebrae at a time until your sacrum becomes planted on the ground once more. Inhale. Exhale, root to rise, lift your hips up. And once your hips are up in your bridge pose, start to shift your pelvis slightly from right to left. So if right underneath your pelvis there was a small glass table, I don't know why it has to be glass, but pretend you're buffing off that glass table with your hips, with your pelvis. So your pelvis is moving in space from right to left. Nothing else is moving too much. You're going to feel some movement in your spine, but try to keep your knees relatively in the same place. Feeling as your hips move off to the left, feeling some shortening along the right side of your body, a little squeeze of the abdominals. And as your hips move to the right, a little shortening along the left side, lengthening along the right side body. And feel how as your pelvis is moving from right to left, feel your weight is being accepted a little more into one foot and then a little more into the other foot. So hips are going off to the right, and now the right foot is supporting more of the weight. And then vice versa with the left side. It's a little bit like when we're walking, we're moving our weight from one leg to another to let the other leg advance through space. So go ahead and lower back down. Just resting for a second here. We're going to lift up into our bridge one more time. Exploring a circle this time. So pretend there's a little hula hoop around your hips. You're going to move your hips in a very small, nice and controlled circle around the inside of that hula hoop. So weight shifts over to the right and then up and over to the left. You can go either direction. We're going to go ahead and switch directions of that circle. So if you're going clockwise, now you're going counterclockwise. Feeling for any sticky spots? Does anything feel a little shaky and not smooth? And if so, bring your awareness to that area and try to smooth it out. Go ahead and slowly lower your hips down. We'll grab for one shin and then the other. And we're going to start a slow rock and roll, just massaging up and down the spine, making it feel good. Eventually making the rock and roll a little bigger, and maybe you cross shins and plant hands and find your way to all fours. I'm going to take a brief cat-cow, so inhale, look forward. Exhale, round the spine, push the ground away. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, tuck the tailbone, look down between your knees, spreading the shoulder blades apart. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, round. Find your way back to a neutral spine. And now we're going to do a little bit of a side-to-side cat-cow. So go ahead and look back towards your right foot, turning your head to the right. And then look towards, like the left foot, the left hip, and start to move the pelvis with it. So as I'm moving my head to the right, I'm squeezing my pelvis to the right, feeling an engagement of the right side body, the obliques. And then as I go to the left side body shortens, the right side body lengthens. Moving your spine. Might not be a very big movement, but we're working on side bending of the spine. It's one of the important movements of the spine that often gets neglected because we don't do enough of it. And maybe as you look over to the right, your shins pivot over to the right too. And to the left, shins pivot to the left, kind of like you're wagging your tail. You can let that go. Let's take some little circles in our cat-cow. So maybe the knees open up a little wider. And we're moving the pelvis in a circle, kind of like we were doing just a second ago in our bridge pose. And then switch directions of that circle. Eventually coming back to hands and knees. Moving towards our bird dog. So this is when we reach our right hand forward, reach our left foot back, and then rooting to rise by pressing down through the left hand. We're going to reach the right arm forward, the left leg backwards, creating length here. Having good stability and control of our core is very important for balance. And this bird dog pose is a little bit challenging for balance. Sometimes you feel like you might tip over. Oh, so something I wanted to do, you can place your hand and your leg back down. If you have a block or something similar, place it on your lower back. And our goal is to not let that block fall off. If you don't have anything like that, just pretend like you have a glass of water on your low back and you do not want that water to spill. So go ahead and reach forward with your right hand, reach back with your left leg. Now try to move your right arm towards the right, your left leg towards the left, opening out to the sides and back. Inhale, reach out to the sides. Exhale, back to the middle, left toes pointing down. Inhale out to the side. Exhale, back to center. Go ahead and place that arm back down. Root to rise by pressing through the right arm, right hand, and reach the right leg and the left arm forward, creating length here. Inhale. Exhale. We're going to inhale and move the right leg out to the right, the left arm over to the left, keeping everything else still. Exhale. Come back to center. Inhale out to the side. Exhale, back to center. Push through that right arm. Lift yourself a little higher. Inhale, arm and leg out to the side. Exhale, back to center. Let the arm and that leg back down. You can move that block out of the way. We're going to go ahead and tuck the toes and then push the hips up and back to down dog. Taking a minute here to pedal out the feet before settling into your dog shape, pushing the ground away. We're going to inhale. Exhale, step the right foot through. So the right foot is in between the hands. If you have blocks, go ahead and put them at the front of your mat, maybe on the highest setting. Then we're going to inhale. Exhale, lift your body up into a high lunge. Arms reaching towards the ceiling. Create some length here, reaching up through the crown of your head and through your fingertips. And go ahead and let the back knee bend just a little bit. And then without letting the hips move up too much, try to push that back leg straight, creating length along the left hip flexor. So the lunge shape can be pretty challenging for balance, especially if your feet are kind of close together in terms of like being like railroad tracks from right to left. So if you're having a lot of challenge with your balance here, then open up your feet a little bit, your right foot a little more to the right, your left foot a little more to the left. Or if you want to make it more challenging, feet can come in towards the midline a little more. Go ahead and let your arms down to heart center. Another thing I should mention for balance, having a wall nearby if you need to have your fingertips to support yourself can be very helpful. Or stepping off of your mat onto a hard surface can be helpful. Because the squishier the surface, the harder it is to balance. And there's many things that control our balance. Our vestibular system and our visual systems are two systems that control our balance. So let's go ahead and turn our heads to the right. Feel how that makes you a little more shaky and wobbly in the legs. Try to firm up and keep your legs nice and strong, and then turn your head over to the other side. So continuing to turn your head from right to left, taking a break with the legs whenever you need. Understanding that what we're trying to do here when we train our balance is finding a comfortable edge. So we want to be challenged where we can do a little more, but we don't want to go past the point where we're starting to feel panicky, nervous, like we're not able to find stability and ease. You know, we have to be able to be calm and keep a clear head. So if this head turning is just too difficult, it's giving you any sense of anxiety or like it's too much, then we're just going to stay with that high lunge. We can also experiment with closing our eyes because our visual system is so important for balance that by closing your eyes, you challenge it a little more. All right, go ahead and let that rest for just a second. Shake it out. That was a long time in the lunge. Having that good leg strength is very important for balance as well. But whenever you're ready to hop back into it, we're going to step that same foot back, the left foot, Finding our high lunge again. Either staying here or maybe leaning the torso forward, keeping that back leg really strong. Maybe your hands find blocks turned on their highest setting. And maybe we lift that back leg up, finding a brief warrior 3. So another warrior pose, super challenging for balance. This is not a beginner pose, so don't feel bad if this is not working out for you. But if you are in it, make sure your left toes are pointing down. From here, using a block under your right hand, start to open the hips up and maybe reach the top hand for the sky. This is our, see, falling all over the place. This half moon pose is a pose that's very challenging. Like, I still struggle with it on a daily basis. Somehow, it's always just a very challenging experience because our bodies are in a position that we're not used to. It can help if you turn your gaze down to the ground. If you want to make it more challenging, you can turn your gaze forward or up towards your top hand. Just make sure your left toes are pointing forward and you're lifting up that left leg. That'll give you some more support. All right, and then go ahead and lower the hands to the ground. We're gonna step back to a high plank and then push up toward down dog. Inhale. Exhale, step the left foot through. So we're going through that same sequence on the other side. So go ahead and lift yourself up to your high lunge. Reach actively towards the ceiling. Bring more length into the spine. And go ahead and bend the right knee a little bit more and then straighten it out. Push it straight, squeezing the right glute muscle and quad muscle. Feeling a stretch along the right hip flexor. You can bring your hands to heart center, thumbs against your chest. Maybe finding that head turn here, nice and slow. Feeling how this starts to challenge your balance. It strengthens your ankles, your legs, your core. And if the head turning isn't working for you, just keep your gaze forward. If this is already challenging your balance to the point where anything more would cause you to lose your balance, then just focus on a non-moving object right in front of you. This is called our drishti, our gaze. Having a stable gaze on a stable object can really help balance. And that's why when you close your eyes and you don't have a drishti, it can really be challenging. So if you want to, go ahead and try closing your eyes here. Wobble, wobble. All right. So now we'll start to lean the torso forward towards that front leg. Stay here or maybe let your hands down on blocks and lift up that right leg, engaging through that glute, keeping the spine long, the crown of the head reaching towards the front of the room. And then maybe finding a block under that left hand, turn and open the hips. Finding your half moon pose, right hand now reaching towards the ceiling, right toes pointing forward. Trying to turn your right leg, so trying to turn the whole leg a little bit clockwise, so the toes point a little bit higher up. Chest is pointing forward, gaze can stay down. Maybe you lighten up a little bit through the left hand. Gaze can come up if you want more challenge. Inhale, and then exhale. Lower the hands to the ground. Step back to high plank. And then push yourself back up to down dog. All right, we're gonna slowly start to walk our feet towards the front of the mat. Forward fold. Now, rooting to rise, so thinking about that push of the feet against the ground, start to roll up the spine one vertebrae at a time. Eventually, the head comes up last. Finding our mountain pose. So this is our stable base. This is where we should feel supported and balanced. Lifting the breastbone up a little bit, drishti going forward, palms facing front. Start to think about what it will be like to put your balance into your right leg. So don't lift up your left foot yet. But go ahead and spread your right toes wide, trying to get your pinky toe away from your big toe. And when we're standing on one leg, when we're challenged in our balance, we're not trying to crunch up our toes. We're not trying to squish them in and squeeze the ground. That will not help. We need to keep our toes nice and wide and try to ground through the big toe knuckle, the little toe knuckle, and the heel. So keeping a nice wide surface area through the foot. And then we'll start to shift our pelvis over to the right, kind of like we did in our bridge pose, and then lift up the left leg. So once again, going for stability and ease here. So we want to be challenged, but not challenged to the point where we're falling all over the place. So if you need to put some fingertips on a wall, if you need to keep the foot down and just come up onto the tippy toe of that left foot, that's fine. If you want to go farther, you can interlace your fingers underneath your left hamstring. Maybe practice kicking the legs straight. So kick out. This is really going to stretch the hamstring. So if your hamstrings are tight, then just only go as far as your body wants you to. Actively pushing down through that right leg. So it's all about the standing leg. It's not about the leg that's up. It's about rooting to rise through that right leg, squeezing through the right glute, trying to get a little taller. And then you can let go of that leg, but keep the thigh up, taking a break whenever you need, and try to rotate the right thigh or the left thigh out to the left. I'm going to turn and face you so you can see. We're going to rotate the knee over to the side and back in. The next time the knee is open out wide, maybe let the bottom of the left foot find the right shin. Finding our tree pose, your hands can come to heart center. If you want to go farther, maybe you slide the left foot farther up the right thigh. Maybe even using your left hand to pull it up. Left toes pointing down, rooting to rise through the right foot, and also a gentle push of the left foot into the right leg. Find that stability. Focus your gaze on something non-moving. You're strong and sturdy like a tree. Even a hurricane can't knock you down. All right, so from your tree pose, try to step your left foot back. So about 3 feet. So now right toes are pointing forward, left toes are pointing a little bit out. And then just find a brief hamstring stretch here, leaning forward into that leg. Maybe your hands come to blocks or to the ground, keeping length through the spine. Lift your upper body back up, and then we're going to step forward and try to lift the left leg back up before placing it down. Right back to our mountain pose, our foundational standing pose. Start to think about shifting your weight into your left leg, spreading your left toes wide. Weight shifts over to the left, and the right leg lifts up. Taking a moment here, holding onto the wall if you need, or maybe interlacing your fingers underneath your right hamstring. And do what you did on the other side. So kick it out and in. And then you can start to rotate the right leg out to the right and back in. So the knee is pointing straight forward, and then the knee is pointing as far out to the right as feels comfortable in your hip. The next time your knee is out to the right, go ahead and find that left shin with the bottom of the right foot. staying here or sliding up the foot up higher or lower, depending on where you can find that stability and ease in the pose. Maybe hands come to heart center, opening that right hip up. All right, and with a big, slow step back, like you're moving through something thicker than air, step that right foot back, right toes turn slightly out, left toes forward, and then hinge forward just a little bit, keeping a very slight bend in the left knee to feel a stretch right through that hamstring on the left side. Maybe you fold forward here if it feels good, pressing that left hip back, the right hip forward. Inhale, exhaling here. From here, we're going to look forward and lift the torso up just a little bit and try to be strong through the left leg as you lift the right knee up and then let it back down. All right, one more thing here. We're going to inhale and circle sweep our arms up as we come up onto our tippy toes, as high as you can, trying to reach for that ceiling. Exhale, swan dive forward, and then folding yourself down, finding your way onto your back with your feet together. Maybe put some blocks on either side of your knee, either side of your thighs, I should say. Reclining back into a butterfly pose. And I realized that we did not use our thick folded blanket. I was going to introduce pigeon pose, but we ran out of time, so that will be a treat for the last class. Go ahead and use your hands to pull your knees back to center. Open your feet out wide, and then let both knees rock over to the right and then to the left, letting your gaze go opposite of your knees. All right, and then pull both knees into your chest. Give yourself a big squeeze. Exhale, Savasana. Stretch your legs out long. Lay your arms wherever they feel comfortable and settle in. Starting to sense the ground underneath you once more. Maybe feeling a little bit of gratitude for having all that support. Sometimes we don't have all that support when we're in a situation that is difficult or challenging. So when we do have that support, accept it with an open heart. Feeling your breath travel as you inhale, expanding your belly, and then your rib cage, and then all the way up to your chest, your collarbones. As you exhale, your chest lowering, and then your rib cage, and then your stomach lowering back down. Pausing for just a second in between each breath, the transition between inhale and exhale, and the transition between exhale and inhale. Just pausing and noticing, taking a snapshot of that brief moment in time, that transition, that change from receiving to giving. Taking as much time as you would like in Savasana. I encourage at least 5 minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and end the practice here. Thank you for sharing this with me. I hope that yoga will lead to a greater sense of balance in your life. Namaste.